Is your cell phone damaging your brain and ears? What science knows about the long-term risks? With the advancement of technology and the increasing exposure time to cell phones, researchers around the world have begun to investigate possible long-term effects on the brain and sensory systems, especially hearing and balance. Although much of the evidence is still under observation, there are studies that suggest a possible association between prolonged use of cell phones close to the skull and the emergence of certain neurological conditions. A frequently cited example is acoustic neuroma, a type of benign tumor that affects the vestibulocochlear nerve, responsible for hearing and balance. The possibility that radiation emitted by cell phones could, over the long term, contribute to the development of this type of tumor is still being investigated. But preliminary data has raised a red flag among part of the scientific community. This evidence has led institutions such as the World Health Organization and the International Agency for Research on Cancer to classify cell phone radio frequencies as possibly carcinogenic to humans. This does not mean that cell phones directly cause cancer, but rather that there is enough data to justify further research and, most importantly, precautionary measures. The problem is that the biological effects of nanonizing radiation, like that emitted by cell phones, are cumulative and can take decades to manifest. Unlike a burn or muscle pain, cellular and neurological impacts are not immediate. Accumulate silently over time, making the risk even more invisible. And that is the critical point, because we don't feel anything in the short term. We continue to use the technology unconsciously and unprotected, beyond benign tumors. Other impacts have been reported in studies with animals and humans, such as short-term memory changes, difficulty concentrating, sleep disturbances, and even changes in brain metabolism. In tests with volunteers exposed to simulated radiation similar to that of cell phones, significant modification in brain electrical activity during sleep was observed, raising the hypothesis that neurological rest may be disrupted by this type of invisible stimulus. There is still no consensus, but the data suggests that the combination of radiation, heat generated by the devices, and close proximity to the brain should be taken seriously. And if we consider that millions of people sleep with their phones under their pillows or make long calls with the device pressed against their ear, the need for awareness becomes urgent. How to minimize damage without giving up technology? The good news is that you don't need to completely abandon your phone to protect your brain and hearing. With a few simple behavior changes, it is possible to significantly reduce the risks. The first tip is to avoid calls with the phone pressed to your head. Whenever possible, use speaker mode, wired earphones, or devices that keep the phone away from your skull. Although Bluetooth earphones also emit radiation, it is usually significantly lower than that of a cell phone. Still, wired earphones are safer in this regard, especially for long calls. Another important habit is not sleeping with the phone near your head. If you use your device as an alarm clock, try to leave it at least 1 meter away from the bed. Or activate airplane mode while sleeping. To protect your hearing, it is essential to pay attention to earphone volume. A simple but very effective rule is the so-called 60/60ths rule. Listen at no more than 60% volume for no more than 60 minutes at a time. After that time, take a break of at least 10 to 15 minutes to let your ears rest. Another powerful tip is to use earphones that isolate ambient sound well, as this reduces the need to turn up the volume. It is also recommended to avoid listening to music or podcasts in extremely noisy environments, such as on the subway or busy streets. Since to compete with external noise, you naturally raise the volume. This automatic and unconscious adjustment is one of the main causes of auditory overload, in addition to the measures related to phone and earphone use. Take care of your overall hearing health. Get periodic checkups with an otolaryngologist or audiologist, especially if you notice signs like ringing in the ears, a feeling of ear blockage, loss of clarity in conversations, or difficulty hearing high-pitched sounds. Hearing is a valuable but extremely vulnerable sense, and any damage tends to be irreversible. Likewise, take care of your brain with practices that strengthen it, such as quality sleep, healthy eating, physical exercise, and moments of digital disconnection. The balance between technology and well-being lies in how we use resources, not in rejecting them. The problem is not the cell phone itself, but irresponsible, excessive, and uninformed use. The future of technology and individual responsibility as technology advances. Cell phones are becoming increasingly powerful, compact, and integrated into our routines. Today, they function as a camera, digital wallet, entertainment center, work tool, and even personal assistant. With the arrival of 5G, built-in artificial intelligence, and augmented reality, the trend is that we will spend even more time connected. And with that, exposure to electromagnetic waves, digitized sound in earphones, and the cognitive overload caused by notifications, alerts, and constant stimuli also grows. In this scenario, more than ever, the conscious use of technology is necessary. Understanding the risks doesn't mean rejecting progress, but rather learning to use it with intelligence and well-defined limits. The responsibility for the healthy use of technology should not lie solely with the government or manufacturing companies. It starts with each individual within their own routine. Disabling unnecessary notifications, limiting screen time, using night mode at night. Taking auditory breaks and not taking the phone to bed are simple actions that can have a profound impact on your neurological and auditory health. You don't have to live like a technological hermit to protect your body. You just need to make conscious choices and abandon habits that, while convenient, come with a high long-term cost. The same goes for the use of earphones by children and teenagers who have more sensitive and still developing auditory structures. Finally, never forget that your brain and ears are not adapted to live in an environment of constant and artificial stimulation. They evolved over thousands of years in contact with natural sounds, silence, pauses, and periods of rest. Technology is too recent in human history for us to know all its consequences. But we already have enough information to change our behavior now. Take care of your hearing. Take care of your mind. Use technology to your advantage, not as a silent enemy. And if this video made you reflect, share it with someone else who needs to hear it. Your health is worth that care.